Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee, including welcome to those watching online. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices via the stairs, either through the security door to my right or opposite the lifts in the foyer. Please do not use the lifts. Please assemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise when it is deemed safe to return to the chamber. I would advise that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their image captured. I urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, particularly if there are children present. Speakers using the microphones in the middle may be picked up by the cameras recording the meeting, and members of the public in the public gallery behind the speakers may be picked up by those cameras and have their image captured. Anyone... Okay, I'm really sorry. I do know that there is a problem with the speakers in the gallery area. I will lean as far in as I can into the microphone and hopefully you will pick up some of the sound. But we do know that there is a problem there and it is in being fixed. The bit I was just reading was I would advise that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their image captured. I urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, particularly if there are children present. Speakers using the microphones in the middle may be picked up by cameras recording the meeting, and members of the public in the public gallery behind the speakers may be picked up by those cameras and have their image captured. Any member of the public who objects to the possibility of being filmed may wish to take this opportunity to move or leave. Does anyone intend to film or record audio of the meeting? No, thank you. Would everyone present please ensure their mobile phones are turned to silent and that they are not used to make or receive phone calls or messages in the chamber whilst this meeting is in progress. I have the following members who wish to speak under Council Procedure Rule 20.1. I have item DO6, Councillor Huxley, item RO4, Councillor Pope, and item AO1, Councillor Yates. Would any other member who wishes to speak under Council Procedure Rule 20.1 please announce it now? Okay, I have the following applications reserved for public speaking. Item 5A, Arlington House. Item 5B, 0 or Bimbrook Lodge. Item 5C, the disused railway line at Tivoli Road. Item 5F, Rook's Delicatessen in Ramsgate. I have apologies from Councillor Moore. I don't have any substitution. And I have apologies from Councillor Makinson, substituted by Councillor Everett. Are there any other apologies? Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Everett.
Yeah, as an executive member, I declare an interest in the Glendevon guest house application. I shall withdraw from the meeting for any discussion of that. Thank you.
Councillor Everett, Councillor Orban.
Same.
Councillor Keane.
Same.
Thank you. Do members agree that the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 16th of October 2024 be approved as correct? And do I have a seconder? Councillor Orban, thank you. Do members agree? Agree. Thank you. The Planning Applications Manager will now update on item 5E, which is 30 North Foreland Road, Broadstairs, which has been deferred to a future meeting.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. So, as mentioned, the item has been deferred to a future planning committee to allow completion of checks on the plans submitted and updates to the report as necessary, with updated plans actually received today. These will be subject to a short public consultation period prior to it being reported to members at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So, agenda item 4, Upton County Primary School Broadstairs. This has been returned from a previous meeting and the Principal Planning Officer will now outline the report.
Okay, this is the application area here, so Upton Junior School in Edge End Road. And just to remind members that this is the layout of the site. The area in question for the lighting is in this area outlined in purple here, so the existing sports building. And just to remind members of the site, so this is Edge End Road. Obviously, members will remember hearing from some of the neighbours at the last meeting who live opposite the school and next to the school. And then this is the site. So this is an application to vary the condition for the external lighting. The current condition requires the lighting to be turned off when the sports hall is no longer in use, or to be put on a motion sensor, and the application is to allow for lighting to be on until 10 o'clock every evening and turned off from that point until the morning when the school opens again, or the lighting is needed. So the lighting being considered is some bollard lighting that leads from the car park to the sports hall, and it was the bulkhead lighting on the hall itself. So just to remind members of some photos, here is the site. So the sports hall is in this location here, set behind the car park, behind the trees. And then again, these here, so you can see some of the bollard lighting in this location here. And then I'll just whiz through these photos. So again, it's in this location here, the bollard lighting here, and the sports hall was here. And then this was the image that had been submitted as part of the application. So this was the concern that members had, was to do with the number of bulkhead lights on the sports hall building, and why this number and at this height the lighting was needed. So following that concern, another site visit has been carried out to look at the lighting. So just a few more new photos just to show you. So the main elevations that members raised concerns with was this elevation here, where there was two bulkhead lights, and then this was again a closer view of that, and then turning round into this elevation, the northern elevation. So the agent has come back with additional information as to why this number is needed, and it is linked to it being a fire escape route around the building. So you can see here that there's 4 doors that lead from the building that are all a fire escape route. So this is one on the right hand side here, which is a storeroom. So this is the only door into that space. So there's 2 lights on this side, and then this is another a fire escape door which leads into the hall itself. And you can see then 2 lights on this side. And then this is, again, on the left-hand side here, that's the northern elevation still, so those lights continue round. So if people were coming out of those fire escape doors, they would have to come round this side of the building, round the western elevation, and head towards the back of the field, which is where the fire sort of collection points is at the end of the field. So, and then this is just the other elevations, which again shows some of the lighting, but this wasn't the real concern. So the concerns were these elevations and these number. So the information that's been supplied is saying that this number is needed in order to achieve a particular level of illumination of the escape route round the building. So if the number of lights were reduced, then the actual intensity of the remaining lights would have to increase. And so therefore, in terms of the concerns that have been raised by residents in terms of light illumination from these, it would obviously be increased if the intensity was increased. So talking to the school, these have been fitted with the shields on the top of them, which direct the lights down. They've also, since the application was submitted, have changed the level of illumination. So there's like some sort of switches on it that can change from a bright light to a warm light. And so they've changed it to a warm light to try and reduce the glare to the neighbours as well. And we've sought some advice as well, just from building control, just to check whether they feel that this number is a reasonable number for the building, and they feel that given the number of escape routes, that is a reasonable approach that has been taken with this level of lighting. In terms of the height of the lighting, again, I measured it when I was out on site, and these are all around 2 metres in height from ground level. And the concern again that the school raised is that the field is cut using a tractor. So if there was lighting down at the floor level, there could be instances of damage to the lighting, and also concerns as well that by being in that at that level, it wouldn't be achieving the illumination needed for the fire escape route to be safely provided. So it is felt that the number of lights and the height is acceptable given that information that we've received, and therefore it is still recommended that the application, so this is just showing inside the building that they've gone to trying to show that if people leave the building before 10 o'clock, they can actually switch the lights off earlier. So there's signs to encourage people to do that. So ideally, they wouldn't then be turned off before 10 o'clock. So it is felt that there's that the number and the height is acceptable for this site, and the school are just concerned that this number is needed to achieve safety from the building because the number of people that would be using it at any one time. So all of these fire escapes would potentially be used if there was a fire, and therefore this level of lighting is needed for sort of safeguarding of children and other users. So it's continued to be recommended for approval by us for the variation of the condition to allow the lighting up to 10 o'clock every evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I move that the officer's recommendation is adopted. In the absence of the Vice Chair, would a member please second? Councillor Everett, thank you. And can I have any first speakers? So actually, Councillor Bayford, I've got, and then I'll take the rest.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I fully accept the explanations given. I think totally reasonable and for the safety of our residents. So I fully believe this application should go ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Matterface.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed the report said they've switched to LED as warmer. Can that be a condition that any lighting has to be LED rather than conventional bulbs? It does say they've switched to them, but it doesn't say that they plan to stay with LED lights.
We're not proposing a condition, and I don't actually have any I haven't sought any advice as to whether that actually has made a difference. I mean, usually I think you would know from just using that type of lighting that it does tend to be less bright, but I haven't sought any evidential sort of advice to say that that is an improvement, but it's just probably expected it would be.
Well, it does say in the report that it's warm LED rather than the harsher white, but it doesn't say that the harsher white were LEDs, so I assume that they'd switched to LED as a preference to conventional bulbs.
It's the same lighting, it's just the fact it had different settings so yeah, it's the same lighting, it's just a different setting that they've changed it to.
Councillor Keane.
Thank you. I mean, basically the same as Councillor Bayford said, but I am pleased to see that, you know, the ecology has been taken into consideration and found not to be harming that as well. Thank you.
Councillor Garner.
Thank you. My position on this hasn't changed. I've read the report. I'm surprised that we hadn't heard about the need for these lights because of the fire escapes or the emergency exits before. How this has become new information is a bit of a surprise to me, because it must have been the key reason. It sounds like it was the key reason for having those lights in the first place. And if I can accept that if there is an emergency in the building, that everyone using that building has to exit, then there needs lights. That doesn't mean those lights have to be on between 8 AM and 10 PM every day, Monday to Saturday, just in case there's an emergency. The original condition 10, which asks for motion censored lighting, would serve the purpose of people leaving in an emergency, because the first time a person came out to leave in an emergency, those lights would go on. So I don't see there's any need for this change to the condition, and I will be not supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Wing.
Could I just clarify, how do people usually enter and leave the building? What door? What is the main door?
The main door is around the front, so this door here in the eastern elevation.
So all of the other entrances, including the one that had Harris fencing in front of it, are emergency exits?
This is the main door into the hallway that then leads to the hall, and then this door was to the storeroom, so would be used probably quite regularly. And then the other two doors is this one here, and then the one here, which are both into the hall, north and sort of east and west of the hall.
I'm sort of with Councillor Garner here, so I'm glad it's clarified that it's only going to be used in an emergency situation, and this school must have money to burn to leave lights on all the time. I'd rather see that money spent on books, being an ex-teacher. Why can't these lights be attached to the emergency trigger that that somebody would press if you needed to leave that building in an emergency, so that those lights would only ever come on in an emergency situation? I think it's a complete waste of money. It is impacting local residents, that the lights should only be used in an emergency. So why can't there be some sort of system? There's a fire, there's an incident, you press that bell, you press that button, the lights come on. So I will be voting against, I'm afraid.
I think the reason at the moment they're not is because all of the electrics are joined together. So the electrics for this are linked to the bollard lighting, and they were linked to the floodlights in the car park. So it's all on one electrical system. So they're all coming off and on at the same time through this main switch and on this system that turns them off automatically at 10 o'clock at night. But just a point I didn't mention but is in the report is the fact that the ground for this condition was solely on biodiversity grounds, so it was to do with ecology from potentially bats and the impact on bats from the lighting. So this was never an impact on neighbour condition. It wasn't put on there because we were concerned about the impact on neighbours, and so the impact on ecology has been dealt with. They've raised no concerns on this particular type of lighting, and also environmental health have raised no concerns. So I think the concern is that we're looking to vary this condition to change it, and I understand what you're saying in terms of why it would be better if it wasn't on, but this is the proposal, and we have to look at whether there is actually harm, and both environmental health and ecology have both come back saying there isn't any harm. The ground for the condition is dealt with because that was solely on ecology grounds. So I understand that you're saying, well, residents are concerned about it, but from the view we have is that given the distance, that there really isn't a significant impact on these properties because it is quite far away and set behind trees and other landscaping, and it is turned off at 10 o'clock every night.
I need to come back because I understand and accept totally what you're saying, but we didn't have the full information concerned when it came to us before. We all asked, why are these lights here? And there was no answer to that question at the last planning committee. And now we have the fact that the lights are there for emergency purposes only. So I think that sort of scuppers. Well, it certainly better informs me to understand why they need these lights, but it doesn't help me explain why they need these lights on all the time. And I know the ecology report says that there isn't that much of an effect on the wildlife in the area, but there will be some impact on the wildlife in that area if the lights are on all the time. So I know there is an issue. We didn't have that piece of information, and I still can't understand why the lights have to be on all the time.
Councillor Orban.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Let's have a bit of common sense, can we? I went down there Friday night, I think, to have a look myself. I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen the impact on the neighbours. So I think that's... Yeah, so I wanted to see what the impact was. The biggest impact on the neighbours is the street light that's on the pathway. That's the brightest light of all. And walking along the road, you've got the chain fencing, you've got all the shrubs or whatever in it, plus the trees, and it can't be a large impact on the neighbours whatsoever. I didn't see it as that. I don't live there obviously, but I didn't see it as that. I didn't see there was much interference with the light. And you can't, whatever, the lights are not going to be on all day, are they? They're not going to leave the lights on all day. It's only going to come on when they're dark and put them on when it's used at night. And then it's finishing at 10. And I can't see a problem with this at all. I didn't see a problem with it in the first place. So I'm quite happy to support the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Cabright.
So I did see a problem with this last time. And, you know, I'd spoken to residents about this previously. One thing that I would say, and the only point I've got to add to Councillor Wing, is that the mitigation, one of the points that was made in the original report was that if they had motion sensors, they'd be on and off all the time. Well, now we're being told that those exits are emergency exits and won't be used, so they wouldn't be on and off all the time. So they could connect them to motion sensors and they'd come on as soon as the emergency exit was used. That was literally the point in the report, was that the motion sensors would be on and off all the time. They decided not to go, and that's why they decided not to go with motion sensors.
It's more that the motion sensors would be linked to the actual use of the building. So every time someone's going in, so say it's rented out every hour someone's going in and out of the building and they're turning on and off each time they go past, because all the lights, they're not just linked to people coming out of the emergency exits, it's the main exit and then it's from there to the car park. So that's what they're linked to. So it is more regular than just during an emergency. It's throughout the evening.
I get that, but they don't have to be linked to every single light.
Right, well, I don't appear to have any other speakers, so at this point we will now put the motion for the officer's recommendation for approval to the vote. Those in favour? And those against? And were there any abstentions? So that's carried. Thank you. So, just as item 5, any site visits will take place for committee members on the morning of Friday the 6th of December 2024. And we now move on to public speaking. The first one is item agenda 5A, A01, Arlington House, All Saints Avenue. Speaking against the application, I have Mr. Tony Fisher. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, everybody. I'm the chair of our Residents Association at Arlington House, and I'm here to try to persuade you to defer any decision until you have what we think is vital information to really make an informed decision. Everybody knows that Arlington House dominates the skyline of Margate, can be seen for miles around. It also plays a significant role on a world stage, featured in films, pop videos, fashion shoots, to name just a few. So it is essential that the quality and design of any new windows is of a high quality. The application you have claims there is only a slight difference between the existing profiles of the windows and the proposed new ones. I'm holding them up now. You can judge for yourselves if this is slight or minimal. Changing these windows will have a completely devastating impact on the visual impact of the building, which at the moment appears to have these almost weightless bands of concrete interspersed with glass, which kind of reflect and mirror the waves of the sea just below. And that's not the only point. Another fact is that a large number of leaseholders own specific rights to the windows and can refuse to have their windows altered. We feel this is downplayed in the documentation you have, and we know for a fact that the vast majority of these leaseholders will refuse consent. Why will they do that? Number one, for this very reason of the unsuitability, and number two, because frankly, who in their right mind would agree to forking out £35,000 or £40,000 for a set of new double glazed windows? It's just not going to happen, and we know that for sure. It is outrageous. This is another example of the lack of information that you have. There are no decent elevations in the information you have before you. And by that I mean there's no elevation showing which windows the applicant can and which windows the applicant cannot change. So as a result, we're going to have a complete mismatched mess with windows of different shapes and sizes, opening in different directions and reflecting light all over the place. The homogeneity we're used to would be completely destroyed. And this lack of elevation goes against, to my understanding, both local planning policy, national planning policy, and the pre-app requirements. The Conservation Officer for Thanet District Council said in your documentation that there is insufficient information to determine the application. So what are we asking for? And these are my neighbours. We want you to commit to a site visit and defer any decision until after that.
Time's up. That was the bell. Sorry. Thank you very much. I also have speaking under section 20.1, Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Chair and Councillors. I represent the Margate Central Ward and used to live in Arlington House for 5 years. Today I'll be reading out a statement from Arlington resident John Moss and will then make a case that the committee should defer or reject this application. John Moss says, "This matter is unique in that the applicant seeks to replace the windows in 106 privately owned flats against the wishes of those homeowners. The flat owners object to the proposal for the operation of the windows being changed from sliding to tilt and turn. Insult is then added to injury by virtue of the applicant then expecting the flat owners to pay for the windows they do not want, despite a deed of undertaking in 2012 that the applicant would meet these costs. The applicant is of course entitled to change the windows of the 36 flats it retains and lets to short-hold tenants, but these will then lead to an unsightly mismatch of windows on both sides of this dominant and highly visible building. The planning inspector via the Secretary of State ruled in paragraph 307 of his report in 2013 that the deed of undertaking was necessary in planning terms. At paragraph 308, the inspector stated that it was necessary for as many windows as possible to be changed to avoid a patchwork of windows. The applicant can only currently undertake to renew the windows to the 36 flats it retains, as it has failed to seek agreement for many of the 106 privately owned flats. Therefore, a patchwork of windows with the majority of the existing sliding panels and narrow frames being interspersed with those of thicker framed and tilt and turn openings is totally unacceptable in planning terms because of the unsightly mismatched appearance. The planning committee has no option but to reject the application that is currently before it. There are better and more acceptable options available. On to my own words, I would like to say 3 things to justify rejection or deferral. Firstly, this application is not supported by TDC's own conservation officer, who have included the words, "The amount of information considered does not appear to be adequate to what would be expected of a building of this scale, influence and importance." And they said, "I would have expected further detail on energy efficiency to be included in order to assist in justifying thicker frames." If this is passed and a mismatch of windows start to appear, then in my opinion this would result in visual blight on this iconic building. On to 2. Are tilt and turn thicker frame windows the only option? As you may be aware, there is a separate valid planning application that is looking to better insulate the windows whilst retaining thinner frame sliding windows. Surely it would be better to defer this decision until that application has been heard in order to provide the tenants of the properties with the most choice. I believe the alternative application to be £1 million cheaper, which would provide more options to residents. Number 3, there's been no consultation with the residents. We have considerable objections to this application. If planning are minded not to defer or reject, perhaps they would be interested in a site visit before making their decision. As residents have told me, they want to know what the options are before this is passed, before this proceeds. Thank you.
Thank you. The Planning Applications Manager will now outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. So the application is for the replacement of windows in Arlington House. So just a few images. We've got aerial view from Google of Arlington House. We've got isometric view from Google Earth. So the main issues for members to consider are with the proposal is the impact on the character and appearance of the building and its relationship with the conservation area, adjacent list of buildings, in addition to any benefits from the development. So the location, as I think I think everyone's aware, it's an incredibly prominent building, which is, as mentioned, well known in Margate. So to clarify the location of the conservation area, the plan on the left is the one to look at. The red line denotes the area that is excluded from the conservation area, which effectively is Arlington Arcade and the Arlington House itself. So this is the Margate Seafront Conservation Area, just to clarify that point, because it's referred to as the Margate Conservation Area, but it was the Seafront Conservation Area, so that was the extension, effectively. It's its own conservation area, but in 1997 it was designated. So just a few images of Arlington House. So got an image here from when, on the left-hand side, from when crossing All Saints Avenue. Then you've got one further up as you come round the corner past the Nail and Rock. And I've just got some close-up views, for members to be able to see the actual detail of the windows themselves. So on the left-hand side, you've got a view from All Saints Avenue looking up. So this is the western elevation, and this is effectively mirrored on the eastern elevation, and obviously forms the main point of contention in terms of the proposed changes. So you can see the different articulation and the waveform, as well as the existing horizontal sliding single glazed aluminium windows. You've then got on the side elevation, which is the north elevation, a number of windows as well of different types. So when looking at the elevations of the building itself, you have a variety of different types of windows, but obviously the main number of the windows are obviously on the eastern and the western elevation. Now, and then there's the other side. So the left image there is the south elevation, where you've just got a single window from the second floor up the 18 stories above that. So in terms of taking a snapshot of the lower part of the building, so if you've got the image at the top there is the west elevation and the east elevation, so you've just got the first and second floor. So the first floor has a different window arrangement, and then the second floor has a window arrangement that then is replicated on all of the other floors above that. So as mentioned, those windows are light in terms of the frames. You can see if I go back to the image, you can see the sort of the grey colour, as well as, I mean, you can see one of the windows there that's slightly open. So obviously sliding horizontally. And the main change that's proposed to occur is that, sorry, I will show you these elevations as well quickly before that. In terms of the northern elevation and the southern elevation, because you've got a bit of a different type of section of windows of different forms of opening. Some are fixed shut. Some of the ones on the first floor are also crittle windows. What is being proposed to do is to change the windows predominantly to these tilt and turn windows. Now what that will do, and we'll look at this in much more detail with the window arrangement, is actually change it so that it is not, so that it is effectively a single window that then opens, rather than effectively a band of windows at the moment. So the delineation that you will see, there will be a vertical delineation between those window frames. Sorry, I'm off the mic. So in terms of, again, looking back at the existing, so you can see at the moment how, if you take this section here, you have the windows that obviously slide either side, and then the central partition. And you can see again, then if you go to the bottom elevation there for the east elevation, you can see that there are actually individual frames for each window because of the change in opening. Now on the northern elevation, you have the changes again. This is the first floor and the second floor, and then it's replicated above that. There is a change in the style of openings here as well, and there is also a change on window which is type F, where there is an increase in the sill height to 1.1 metres, which has been put forward on the basis, it's been stated as that's on the basis of fire safety, to change that window in particular. And then Similarly, the windows, just to show that the opening size on the south elevation isn't changing, but the actual type of window is actually staying the same on that elevation. So looking at the detail, and again, I'm going to focus on the windows that form the bulk of the proposal because that's the main point of concern. So you've got 4 types of windows in size, effectively. You've got type A. Now this shows very clearly what's changing in the sense of this, the central, the sort of barrier almost between each frame because of the fact that they are now double glazed and because of the method of opening. So the thickness of that frame is increasing over the thickness, and obviously we've had a visual representation that's been put forward in terms of that. So the details that we have show the thickness at this point of between effectively pane of window to pane of window of 12 centimetres. It's sort of 2 centimetres, then the 8 centimetres, then 2 centimetres. So there will be a break between those panes of glass. There is a condition, which is condition 4, which is put forward so that the actual colour of those windows is to be matched with a submission to come in to ensure that it's trying to match the colour of the existing windows as much as possible. Then you have 2 other types of window in that the waveform as you go around that that band of windows. So again, just you can see that there is effectively a thickening of the frame from the existing. So in terms of some of the matters that have been raised, the report discusses that the submission's been put forward on the basis that that the applicant is trying to achieve Part L of the building standards, which required for replacement windows, which with the windows that have been put forward achieving an energy rating of B or a U value of 1.4, which is basically measuring the heat lost through the actual building itself. Now, information from building control, from our building control, was sourced about whether or not there are alternatives that can be found that would achieve that building regs. That point has been disputed by residents, and I think, therefore, I don't think members can put any weight on either point, especially the point of contention that no window can be found that can, that's a horizontal sliding sash that can achieve the energy rating of building regs. And that's because ultimately members' decision is actually there is no doubt that the change in the windows will improve the thermal performance of the window where it is being changed. So there is benefit to be accrued to that. However, that must obviously be balanced against the visual change that's occurring and whether or not members consider that to be significantly harmful to the character of the building. In addition, one of the other elements that has been talked about is the fact that the application is for all of the windows, but as has been outlined due to various sort of ownership bits and pieces of the flats, some of those flats are unlikely to not going to be altered for various different reasons. And therefore it is important to consider the fact that there is a potential that some of these windows will be changed and others will not be changed. Now ultimately that's going to be the case with any window replacement, with the fact that you have different ownership and the complexity that's involved there. However, it is important for members to consider that fact when looking at this proposal. In terms of other matters, a fire statement was submitted with the application, which is the first stage in the Health and Safety Executive's process, and subsequent to any planning permission on the building, it would be required to follow through that process with the Health and Safety Executive through building control approval as well. It is proposed to remove the asbestos soffits above the windows as well, and there is a condition which is proposed regarding the removal and replacement of that. In terms of mention of another application that's been submitted, that is another application, and as members know, we've got to consider the merits of what's in front of them. If members consider that on balance, the benefits don't outweigh the harm, therefore the application would need to be refused. But in the officer view, given the improvements that would occur to the thermal efficiency and fire safety in terms of the replacement of the windows, we consider that it would outweigh the visual impact of the development. Therefore, our recommendation is to approve the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I move that the officer's recommendation is adopted. Because I had a member, Councillor Alban, seconded, and I have first speaker, Councillor Kay Bright.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. Some buildings can't be energy efficient. I live in a house and we wouldn't be allowed to get double glazing, and it's something that we live with because we bought the house because we love it and it looks great, and that's just live with the cold, put a jumper on. I think this building is iconic, as the residents say. I think this is a kind of the matter we're discussing here is an aesthetic one more than anything else. I was interested that all the photos are taken during the day. You drive into Margate at night and it's the first thing you see. I don't think we need a site visit because I came out of the station tonight and saw it lit up, and I think it's stunning. I think, honestly, regardless of whether there's another application, I completely understand that, Ian. I think it's costly, it's unpopular with residents, you're not going to get homogeneity across the board. It seems to me that it's being imposed on residents with no consultation. I think we've got to listen to residents, and I can't support this.
So I just wanted to come back on that point. I appreciate that there clearly is an issue with regards to what's imposed through various, lease issues, etc., and what's being imposed, but that ultimately can't be taken into account in terms of the planning decision. It's a fundamental decision about that balance between, as you say, the visual impact and any benefits accrued from it. But obviously, there wouldn't be a justifiable reason for review because of, the applicant not consulting with, the residents.
I'll come back on that if I may. In which case, forget I said that. Just from a purely aesthetic perspective, I can't support this.
Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, clearly Arlington House is indeed a prominent building, for which reason I think significantly mismatched windows would not be aesthetically pleasing.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, okay, I'll try to... Do you want me to go over that again? Yes. Okay. I said, as has been said, Arlington House is a prominent building, and for that reason, significantly mismatched windows would not be aesthetically pleasing. Our speakers have asked for further information. I'd be interested to know what further information would help to support the achievement of a better solution, one that would be more acceptable to the residents. If there is information that would help, I think this should be sought. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Alban.
Sorry, I thought I was going to reply to to my colleague back there. This is a brutal building. That's what it's that. It's known as a brutal building. I've been here since 1973. I looked to buy one of those back then. It was a bit too small for me, to be honest.
Can you lean into the microphone, please? Okay. Not back, okay. In.
Sorry, I was looking over there. I go along with Councillor Bright. I think the change to those windows is not a complete change. So unless it's a complete change and everyone is looking the same, then I just think it goes against. Whilst it's not a listed building and it's not in the conservation area, it is the iconic building of Margate. Everybody knows it, not just locals, but people who come here, visitors, etc. I think the issues that the residents have with the freeholders is the issue that obviously they've got to sort out. We can only look at the planning aspects of this, but I think that the visual amenity is what's important to this building, and that is what makes it iconic. So on those grounds, I cannot support this application. Thank you.
Councillor Everett.
Yeah, I don't really understand why the freeholder wants to change the windows unless they're obliged to do so in order to improve the energy efficiency of the flats that they're letting out on shorter tenancies. Because I can't see what is in their interests, why it's in their interest to do that unless they're obliged to do so. It seems to me that we're caught in the middle of a dispute between the residents of the block and the freeholder, and that isn't something that should be resolved through the planning system. What we're facing is a proposal which will create something which is visually unacceptable. So we should turn it down and invite the freeholder to go off and find another solution. The fact that there's another application isn't material to our consideration of this application, except that if there is another solution, then the freeholder should be alighting on it and bringing that to us. So we don't have to consider another application, but we can know that there is another application out there and that there is contradictory evidence about what windows are possible. So I don't think we should be approving this application.
Okay, I do have one more request to speak, and I am thinking of taking that as the last one because we do seem to all be agreeing. Councillor Keane.
I'll make this quick then. I mean, for me, seeing the different thicknesses that the gentleman brought along made up my mind that this is going to totally change the appearance of the building, which is an iconic building, so I can't support it.
Councillor Wing, do you have anything different to say? Because I'm conscious we've got a long agenda tonight.
If this was it's not a listed building and it's not in the conservation zone, but it's hugely iconic, and Margate would not look like Margate without this building. So imagine that as a street of Georgian properties, and we decide to only change half the windows on that street of Georgian properties. It would absolutely blight the street and the building. And I don't know why the freeholder would want to do that, because it would devalue the look of that building. It's not in his best or her best interest to actually do that. It's just bonkers. I don't support it, obviously.
All right, at that point I am going to move on to put the motions officer recommendation for approval to officers to the vote. Those in favour? And those against? I think you've just lost. Okay, I now hand back to Mr Livingston to make a statement.
Thank you, Chair. So members have made it very clear, as outlined in the report, what the balance is. So in terms of a potential new motion to refuse the application, may I offer the following, that the proposed development, by virtue of the design incorporating the frame thickness and method of opening and lack of homogeneity of the windows, would disrupt and alter the external character of Arlington House, resulting in harm to the appearance of the building and its contribution to the character of the area, including the Margate Seafront Conservation Area, not outweighed by the public benefits from the replacement windows, contrary to Thanet local plan policies QDO2 and HEO2 and paragraphs 135 and 208 of the MPPF.
Proposed by Councillor Matterface and seconded by Councillor Kay Bright. Those in favour?
Oh, no, it needs to be.
Those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. So that is now carried. Yeah, so it is refused on those grounds. Thank you. We have quite a large crowd from Arlington House, or about Arlington House, so I'm just going to pause for a few minutes to give you the chance to leave. You are, of course, welcome to stay and stay for the rest of the committee, but I guess probably you're not going to. I thought you might. Thank you. All right, thank you. We're moving on to the next item, Agenda 5B, item A020, Auburn Lodge in Kingsgate. Speaking in favour of the application, I have Mr Tom Maddison first. You have 3 minutes. And just a reminder, when the red light goes on, you've got 30 seconds left.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think it's going to take me 3 minutes. I just wanted to say that one of the reasons I bought this property was its inconspicuous nature, and I'm doing everything I can to try and maintain that. I do plan with the solar panel installer, which is the Solar Together, part of the Thanet partnership, to request them to make the panels as low as possible. And that's something they've already got instructions from me to do. So the intention is to make them as invisible as possible so the property maintains as inconspicuous a nature as can be done. Having lived here born in Ramsgate and lived here my whole life, I've walked past that property before I had acquired it hundreds of times and didn't see it. Curiously, someone did the same thing to me today because they couldn't find how to deliver to the property. I think that's the way it should be. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And speaking against the application, Mr Polterra, you also have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of residents and neighbours of Kingsgate Castle and must draw members' attention to a number of flaws in the officer's report. Firstly, the report refers to just one representation when there are 6 objections. Secondly, the report refers to a non-material amendment application in 2022, of which local residents were completely unaware, as there is no record of the application on the Council's website, contrary to planning guidance, which states that such applications will appear on the planning register. Most importantly, though, is the fact that when referring to the Kingsgate Conservation Area and the setting of the Grade 2 listed Kingsgate Castle, although the report refers to the desirability of preserving or enhancing the conservation area, no mention is made of the NPPF, which states that great weight should be given to the conservation of heritage assets, and that where there is less than substantial harm to the significance of heritage assets, such harm should be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal. In this instance, public benefits have not been identified, and none will accrue from the further increased height of the surrounding parapet and solar panels. Instead, the report asserts that the development in its amended form would not unduly detract from the character and appearance of the Kingsgate Conservation Area or the nearby listed building. The report therefore accepts that this proposal would detract from the significance of both heritage assets, but that it will not unduly detract from them. However, this does not accord with NPPF policy or the Council's own local plan policy HE02, which states that new development which would detract from the immediate or wider setting of any part of a conservation area will not be permitted, which does not provide for allowing development which harms heritage significance unless that harm can be outweighed by public benefits, of which there are none. Members are therefore respectfully urged to pay due regard to the concerns of the Conservation Officer, which, despite allegedly having been published on the Council website on the 3rd of July, were not made public until at least the 7th of November, when the Planning Officer asked for the document to be uploaded to the website, less than a week before the publication of the agenda for this meeting. We therefore strongly believe that this application has not followed due process in terms of the consideration of and weight applicable to harm to heritage assets, and would urge members to at least view the visibility and impact of the increased height of the parapet and solar panels for themselves from the opposite side of Kingsgate Bay before making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. The Principal Planning Officer will now outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is the application site here. So you've got Kingsgate Bay Road, Kingsgate Castle is in this location here, and this is Binbrick Lodge here. And then this is just an aerial view showing the site. So the ground level drops away significantly. This is a road that slopes down. The property is set behind a hedge to the front of Kingsgate Castle. these are just some views of the building. So this is a retrospective application for alterations to the extensions that have taken place to the building. So the application is for an increased height of the building by 19 centimetres from what was approved through the non-material application. So these are just some images of the site. So this is the eastern elevation as you approach the site. So Kingsgate Castle is off to the right-hand side here. And then you can see here's Kingsgate Castle. So there's a minimum distance of 20 metres between this building and Kingsgate Castle. And you can just see these are the alterations that have taken place to the building, changes to windows and materials. And again, just the relationship there. And as you go round the building, this is then the rear. And then this is a view of the site from the road. So Kingsgate Castle off to the left here, and this is Binbrook Lodge in this location here. So as you can see, it is set behind existing hedgerow, but you can see the top of the building sort of poking above that screening. So these are just some plans of the layout of the building. So the actual footprint isn't changing through this application. So these are, I'll just go through these very quickly. So the approved basement plan and the proposed, so that isn't changing in any way. Then the approved ground floor plan and the proposed. So again, the actual footprint remains the same. It's just some changes, a few very minor changes to some fenestration around one of the elevations. And then the approved roof plan, so you can see the solar panels. So these were originally approved, and then through the non-material amendment, there was an increase in the angle of the solar panels from the roof. And then that's a proposed roof plan. And then I'm just going to go through the elevation. So I'm showing you then the original approval, and then the next slide is the non-material approval versus the proposal. So this is the originally approved south elevation, so that's the main elevation you saw in the photos, and then this is showing the non-material amendment approval at the top here and the proposed elevation at the bottom here. So as mentioned, the main change is the increase in the height of the parapet by 19 centimetres, and really there's not too many other changes in that elevation. Then again, the approved north elevation through the original application, and the approved non-material to the top and the proposed at the bottom. So you can see slightly more changes here with the fenestration, with the window in this location here changing in design and becoming wider, but otherwise everything pretty much remaining the same. And again, obviously the height in this view would also be different, and you can see a change in the window here just with glazing bars. And then the approved east elevation and the proposed east elevation, sorry, this one at the top hasn't got a label, but it's actually the approved one through the non-material. So you can see in each case, in terms of the solar panels that have been mentioned, so these were the solar panels in the original application, and then they were raised slightly through the non-material, and now through this application, it's the same increase in height. So, but it's an ever so small increase in terms of the projection from what's proposed now to what was the original proposal. And then in terms of the west elevation, this was the approved west elevation, and then again the approved non-material west elevation and the proposed. So again, really not really many changes again to that elevation. Again, the main issue is just the increase in height of the parapet by the 19 centimetres. It's considered that it's a very minor increase, whilst the castle is in close proximity to the building. In assessing the impact, we have to look at whether there is harm. Is there harm from this increase by such a small amount? It's not considered by officers that is harmful enough to warrant refusal of the application, especially versus the what's already previously been approved, both originally and through the non-material amendment. So it is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. I move that the officer's recommendation is adopted. In the absence, Councillor Alban, you seconded. Thank you. And speakers, I have Councillor Alban first.
Thank you, Chair. I totally agree with the officer's report. I think the increase in height is minimal. and I can't see a problem with this application at all. Fully support it. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Vatican? No? Sorry.
I've been called a lot worse, don't worry.
Sorry, I can't quite see your label for some reason.
That's okay.
It's gone.
Just what Councillor Alban was saying, I can't see any sort of problem. It's not overbearing. It's a nice design, and I will be supporting the officer's recommendations.
Do I have any other speakers? Councillor Matterface?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, we've seen it from Kingsgate Castle, that picture. Do we have any photographs looking at it across Kingsgate Bay from the Digby? Because that is an iconic vista, and it is a protected one under the neighbourhood plan, BSP4, I think it is. So it may be useful to know what it looks like if we were sitting at the Digby on the decking there looking over towards Kingsgate Castle. Because this is between the two. And I accept what the applicant said, it is tucked away, but has this made enough of a difference to do away with some of that sort of hidden nature of it? But just if you had a picture, it would be useful.
We will come back on that, but Councillor Keane, you wanted to speak as well.
Thank you. I mean, I had to just quickly work out what 19 centimetres were, because I still think in old-fashioned measurements, and it's under 7.5 inches. I mean, that is tiny in a building term, and therefore, you know, I really can't see it makes that much difference. I presume the fact that the solar panels are raised has some reasoning behind that. I don't know if you can explain to me why they needed to be raised, but whatever, it seems to me the difference is so minimal that I would be approving this proposal.
Councillor Matterface, you wanted to come back.
Just looking at the Conservation Officer's report, where it says, I don't know whether it's he or she, would recommend the solar panels sit flush or at a more discrete angle. But it also says located within the grounds could also be a solution. Is there any reason why that couldn't be an answer? Because it would take them off the roof. Because you do see solar panels, obviously, on the ground. I mean, the Conservation Officer has raised that point.
No, sorry. Thank you, Chair. In terms of, I suppose, I appreciate I'm sounding like a bit of a broken record with this point, but we've got to obviously consider what's in front of us. But at the same time, I suppose that the obvious thing would be obviously the land take of putting this number of solar panels in terms of in the garden. In terms of the angle, obviously, we've heard obviously mentioned that obviously this is put forward, I suppose, as a bit of a maximum almost, because obviously when the manufacturer details come in, obviously the aim will be to try and get them as flush as possible, to ensure though that they're also efficient. That's often why they are put at the angle that they are. To come back to your other point as well, I am just going to present, and I wouldn't normally do this, but I will do for the sake of information. This is before construction has occurred, because this is a Google image from Street View from November 2022, just to give you an idea. So we're on the road, we're in an elevated position, but just to show the relationship between obviously Kingsgate Castle and the property itself. Obviously you can see actually that when you're further away it is more exposed, and I think that's a relevant point, but obviously you can see before construction how exposed it was and its relationship with the listed building.
It is a view I know well because it's one of my regular walks. Thank you.
Do I have any other speakers? No. In that case, we'll now put the motion for the officer's recommendation for deferral to officers for approval to the vote. Is that right?
It's just approval.
For approval, actually. No, sorry, my notes have been given to me wrong. It's for approval. Those in favour? And any against? And any abstentions? So that's carried. Thank you. So just to say that is carried. Moving on to agenda item 5C, RO4, the disused railway line at Tivoli Road, Margate. Speaking in favour of the application, I have Ms Polly Brown. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. The first ground for refusal alleges a cramped and congested appearance. However, in the absence of any development on the opposite side of the footpath, we fail to see how this can be the case, when the pattern of surrounding development is made up of terraces which extend to the full limits of site boundaries and which set the character of the area. In the same way, we do not consider the dwelling would be obtrusive, as it will form a natural progression of the existing terrace and provide a visual closure at the end of the access road, something which we thought was encouraged. In fact, the only reason why the space was left originally was to provide a turning facility for refuse vehicles, and it was never intended as a visual break in development, which we feel will be more appropriately completed by built form, again characteristic of the surrounding area. As far as the footpath is concerned, the dwelling will only abut onto a length of 8.6 metres, or just 5.7% of the 150 metre length of the whole path, which is hardly significant and therefore not unduly detrimental. The report refers to a loss of agreed landscaping and ecological enhancements to biodiversity, which is not the case, as the landscaping details have yet to be approved and an amended plan has been submitted as part of the condition discharge process. The report also says that the only comparison which should be drawn is against the last approved scheme, but this proposal represents an 83% increase in the amount of soft landscaping above that originally approved. If that development was satisfactory in biodiversity terms, this latest scheme is a significant improvement above that which has previously been deemed to be acceptable. With regard to the benefit of increased natural surveillance, the report only refers to two small landing windows. However, this completely ignores the introduction of habitable room windows to the front and rear elevations at both first and second floor levels, facing along the footpath in both directions. This issue was emphasised by the council when the boundary treatment to the footpath was agreed, and which includes railings which will replace the fencing for the first 50 metres. But the importance of surveillance of this footpath, used primarily by parents and children accessing Sampson School, is not being afforded the same emphasis in this application, especially when the head teacher has expressed his support to myself in an email, and the fact that there is not one objection to the development. Members will be fully aware of the need to maximise the efficient use of land in a highly sustainable location and to give great weight to the need for family housing, and that unless the alleged harm significantly and demonstrably outweighs the benefits, planning permission should be granted. At the very least, we would urge members to visit the site to assess the situation for themselves before reaching a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking under Rules Section 20.1, Councillor Pope, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the officers and councillors for your time this evening. The reason for calling this in was to give councillors a chance to review extra information that was submitted in support of the application. So these two elements are, as mentioned, that the home will provide natural surveillance of the footpath, and that support has been written by the head of Salmerston Primary, whose families will use the footpath and benefit from the additional surveillance. Also that the reason for ejection, as mentioned, was that it doesn't fit the character of the area, but as the additional home will become one of a terrace, it will fit with the rest of the houses on the plot and the terraced setup of the area around. Thank you.
Thank you. The Principal Planning Officer will now outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the application site outlined in red here. So the site forms part of a larger site that has previously been granted planning permission for 10 houses. This is College Road to the bottom of the slide here, and Tivoli Road to the north of the slide here, with the school adjacent to the site. A footpath runs along the boundary, so between the site and the school, a footpath extends from Tivoli Road down to College Road. So this is the site in this location here. So you can see originally it was an undeveloped piece of land next to the school. And then a closer view of the site prior to development. And then some views in. So these photos just show the site. So the site has commenced works. The majority of the buildings are up. So this is looking from Tivoli Road into the site. So this is the access running into the site. The footpath is to the left of the slide here. And then again, view through here. So you can see, looking at this photo, the buildings are set back from the boundary. You can see that this is the gap of the access road running into the site, and all of the buildings currently follow this building line through the development. This is the footpath between the site, which is on the left-hand side here, and the school on the right here. A permission was granted for a fence, but then as it gets down to Tivoli Road, it was reduced to a railing, but that hasn't been installed yet, so this will change following completion of the development. And then just again looking towards College Road, again the footpath. So the development site is on the right hand side here. So this building that you can just about see in this photo here is the one of the 3 terraces that exist on the site, and the proposal is to add a further dwelling into this location here, which extends up to this boundary line, so with a gable side elevation at this point here. So again, this is a view of that terrace. So you can see a group of 3 terraces here, and the proposal would be to add a 4th terrace house into this location here. And then this is just a view through again of the footpath. So you can see these are similar views. So on the left-hand side here, you can see again, this is the location of the proposed dwelling. So at the moment, again, you can see all of the houses are set away from the footpath, providing some relief to the footpath. And again, you can see in this view here, again, the buildings that have been built and set away from that location. And then this is another view looking back. So again, you can see the group of terraces here, and the proposal is to extend that up to this boundary here. And again, another view further back looking again. So again, you can see this is the building line that the current buildings follow, providing again that relief from the footpath. And then just showing into the site in this location here is the proposed location of the dwelling. So this is the original, or the variation in condition, but the one that's commenced work was approved for the 10 houses. So this is the 3 terraced properties to the rear of the site. This was the original approval, which was a turning head in this location here, and for this area to be soft landscaped, providing planting and ecological enhancements for the site. This was the approved landscaping plan for that application. So you can see in this area here, so the sort of lighter greeny mustardy colour. This was approved as wildflower grassland through the landscaping plan, and this area alongside this area here, which also was part of the application site, provided the ecological enhancements for the site. This is a previous refusal, so this is a resubmission. This application has previously been submitted for this dwelling, and the council have refused this application already. So the previous application was refused on 2 grounds. One related to a highway grounds, so the proposal involved creating a pedestrian access point in this location here and removing the turning head for vehicles, the provision of parking that wasn't considered to be of a satisfactory size, and therefore for those reasons it was refused on highway grounds. And the other reason related to the principle of the dwelling in this location and the impact on the character and appearance of the area. And the reasons in the refusal linked to the cramped and obtrusive form of the development, the fact that the development would enclose the footpath. So whilst it's been mentioned that there would be benefits from having a dwelling here on the overlooking of the footpath, there's also concerns that actually by having a building right up to the edge of it, it would actually provide quite an enclosed space of that footpath, and with again no relief from that footpath to the development. It was also refused on the grounds of the loss of the external amenity space and the biodiversity benefits that space offered. So this application this is just a closer up view of that refusal. So this was the refusal. And this was a refused front elevation. So we have no concerns with the actual design of the building. Obviously it is completely in keeping with the rest of the terrace that's already been approved. So that in itself is not the issue. It's not the design of the building. It's a principle of an additional dwelling in this location. So this was the rear elevation. Again, you can see it was just matching what was previously been approved next to it. And then this was the side elevation that was previously facing the footpath. So with that previous refusal, there were no windows within that side elevation. So this is now the proposed site plan. So again, you can see it's the same proposal with the dwelling extending up to the footpath, the loss of that space for landscaping and ecological enhancements. whilst the turning head has now been put back, so highways haven't actually raised any objections to this, it does actually reduce the parking provision down. So each dwelling was previously approved with 2 parking spaces. This has now been dropped down to 1 space per dwelling with 1 visitor parking space. Highways have come back and said that on balance they consider that because this is potentially an edge of centre site, that they could argue that maybe 1 space per dwelling would be sufficient. It's a balanced one. It's quite far really from the town centre, but based on the advice we've had from Highways, we haven't continued to raise that as a reason for refusal, but it does reduce parking provision down within the site. This is the proposed ground floor plan of the new proposal, and then the first plan. So now they have introduced a first floor landing window. So whilst it's been mentioned there are benefits of a window, it's just to a landing area, so it's not actually serving a habitable room. It doesn't really offer massive benefits from overlooking, and safety benefits from that window, which is from a staircase and not really going to be used frequently. And then this is the other window in the roof space, so again serving the staircase going up to the bedroom within the roof space and the roof plan. And then the proposal of the front elevation and rear remain the same as the previous. So again, we don't actually have any concerns with the actual design. That's fine. And then this is now the side elevation facing the footpath. So these are those 2 landing windows that have been added. And then that's just the elevation that faces the other dwellings. So the concern we have is that this is increasing the density of the development. It's, when compared to the original scheme, it is resulting in a reduction in the quality of the development. We previously had some open space that offered these biodiversity benefits and just general open space that aesthetically benefited the design of the scheme, provided visual amenity within the development. By trying to introduce a further dwelling, it's harming that. It's increasing the density. It's providing an enclosure to the footpath that is well used by the school, and it's impacting on the building line that we've previously approved. So that loss of relief between the site and the footpath. So again, just showing you again the photos there of that site. So in our view, this is a bit too far. It doesn't achieve a good quality development, and therefore it's recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. I move that the officer's recommendation is adopted. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Matic? No. Yeah, thank you. Rizeki. Your names begin with the same letter. It was just a moment there. I have first speaker, Councillor Kay Bright.
It's just a question, really. In the original layout that was planned, there was all that area by the actual line itself, which had the biodiversity. What's happening to that in this application? So that bit that goes off at the top.
That's remaining. That's not being considered through this application. So that still would remain as open space with planting. So the only changes that have occurred now through this application. So obviously this was the previous approval with all of that space next to the site and then that area, and now this. Around this application, they're now incorporating this small area at the rear, which wasn't previously there. So if you could. Sorry, flicking back. So that again, at the back here, the gardens were a little bit deeper, and the sheds serving the properties were right at the rear boundary. So now I keep going the wrong way. Now they're proposing this area and suggesting that these are going to be biodiversity benefits. Obviously, it's quite narrow. It's difficult to really achieve a huge amount in this space, because you've got the drop to the road and footpath beyond here, and then you've got a footpath here, so you're not going to be able to get a huge amount. You might probably be able to get some hedge planting and lower level planting along that space, but that's what they're suggesting is going to be achieved, rather than this area fully to the side here. So.
Just as a supplementary, as the footpath goes round, is that still fenced off, or can you access that green area?
This area here, this footpath, yeah, I think that would be fenced still. I think that currently is fenced all the way around at the moment. I'm not sure I've got a photo showing that area, but yeah, I believe that footpath is fully fenced all the way round to College Road. So you wouldn't be able to get from the path into that area. I think that's what your question is, but...
Councillor Garner.
Thank you. This question may or may not be a planning consideration, but I'm interested and I'm going to ask anyway. I don't quite understand this development, which was approved 7 years ago in 2017 of 10 dwellings, is still being built, isn't it? So why isn't this application an amendment to the original one? Why is this a new one? Is this little plot of land owned separately to all the rest?
No, well, they can't amend the original application because they're adding an additional dwelling. So we can only amend the original application if it follows the same proposal that's caught within the description. So because they're adding the dwelling, they've had to come in separately for this extra unit.
Just to super clarify that, so the applicant owns the whole plot and is the developer of the 10. Thank you.
Councillor Matterface.
This is going to sound a bit odd, but where the footpath curves round, you've said there's going to be there's biodiversity on the side. So is that just closed off space then, so nobody can actually access it? Looking there, because it's got, you said there's a fence on the footpath, so either side of it is a bit of landscaping. So my follow-up question is, I should plug that, sorry. The bit that you're losing, if the house goes ahead, is that going to be matched by the additional bit that you're getting at the back of properties 8, 9 and 10? That's my question. Rephrase that.
No, that's fine. I mean, I don't know the exact measurements of it. I'm just looking at it from, in terms of looking at that space there, which is obviously the depth of the property and the depth of the garden and the width of that versus this space here. I mean, like I say, I haven't actually measured it, so I can't confirm, but to me, that is not the same size as this area here that we'll be losing. That is smaller.
Come back. If number 11 is built, it will have a back garden, which will be presumably slightly smaller because you're going to take a bit off for the, but it's still going to be a bit of open space at the back, isn't there? But it's going to be with the property rather than just public open space, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. With biodiversity benefits, we kind of try to exclude areas that are within gardens because we don't have any control over those. So in this instance, whilst you will be achieving open space, but through a garden area, it's not the biodiversity benefits we previously secured.
In terms of biodiversity, you're still going to have some open space there. Obviously, you'll be losing some, but you're still going to have some, and you're going to have the long strip at the back of 8, 9 and 10 anyway, aren't you?
Councillor Garner.
Sorry, I just wanted to just come back with another question, which may or may not be a planning consideration, but I would like to ask anyway, is can you just clarify for me what the number of houses on a development, on a single development, that there needs to be before affordable housing has to be provided? Thank you.
It would be this number. So if the application had come in for this number, which is 11, then yes, it would have triggered the affordable housing requirements. In the old local plan, we had a clause that allowed any additional applications that came in on the same site to be added together, and you could catch that. But the current policy doesn't allow us to do that. So unfortunately, we can't ask for affordable housing. But yes, if it had come in as one application for 11, obviously back then it probably wouldn't because it was under 14. But now, if it came in for 11, then it would have been caught.
Councillor Wing.
I mean, looking at the original plans, I mean, there is an extra bit of biodiversity in one of the car park spots down there that was for plot 10. But we all know the reality of that is that's just going to be flattened and a car will be on it 8 months down the line, because that's what will happen. But if you go back to the plan that shows you the original site, I'm not sure why the developers would want to put an extra building there, because at the minute it looks a really lovely little housing estate. It's got a good mix of housing, it's got plenty of open space, and by dumping that one house there, it just upsets the whole balance of it. It makes that far end look cramped, overcrowded, and not really. It just upsets the whole development. And of course, we've got that big loss of that biodiversity area there, which isn't really, you know, it's not being catered for. They're just rejigging bits, and the whole issue over parking will be an issue, because parking is an issue all over the place.
Councillor Alban?
What Councillor Wing just said, thank you.
Councillor Bayford?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a pity because undoubtedly another house can be fitted, but just because it can be fitted doesn't necessarily mean it should. I do believe this is a case of cramming, and I think harm would be dealt to the development as a whole if this extra house were built. Thank you.
Do I have any other questions? In which case, can I ask, looking at the fences, and the question that was asked about fencing through the biodiversity area and the proposed biodiversity area at the back of the gardens, is there any maintenance? Are they visible? Is there anything that will ensure that they're looked after to some extent? And how you access it?
Thank you, Chair. There is on the variation of the 2016 one from 2023, there is a landscape management plan condition, which the landscape management plan has been submitted already. So there is plans for managing the sort of public elements of the open space that are on the site.
Right, any other questions? In that case, we will now put the motion for the officer's recommendation for refusal to the vote. Those in favour? And those against? And any abstentions? Thank you. That's carried. Right, thank you. Moving on to the next item, item 5F, DO6, Rooks Delicatessen, 7 to 9 King Street, Ramsgate. Speaking in favour of the application is Mr. Amadi Abelvand? Sorry, I normally look at this and practice this in advance, and I didn't. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. The application for 7 to 9 King Street, Ramsgate has been developed with great care and attention to detail, reflecting the importance of maintaining the character of conservation area while contributing positively to Ramsgate's future. This proposal balances respect for the area's heritage with the opportunity to address local housing needs and bring vitality to the town centre. Following feedback on the previous application, significant changes were made to address the concerns raised. The scale and bulk of the extension have been reduced, and the design has been refined to ensure it integrates seamlessly into the surrounding area. Materials such as white render, slate roofing and black powder coated fenestration have been selected to complement the existing architecture and enhance the area's visual harmony. These revisions demonstrate a deep respect for the conservation area, and the planning officer has noted that this proposal avoids the previous reasons for refusal. It is important to acknowledge the objections raised during the process. However, with respect, it appears that these concerns may not fully consider the details of the project or its benefits. Privacy concerns have been directly addressed through the inclusion of a 1.8 meter privacy screen on the balcony, ensuring that neighboring properties are not overlooked. The development does not obstruct sightlines or reduce natural light for neighboring properties. Waste management has been carefully planned with seagull-proof bags aligning with local waste collection practices. It is important to note that the facade and overall appearance maintains consistency with the area's character. Beyond addressing concerns, this project brings clear benefits to Ramsgate and its community. By introducing 2 one-bedroom flats and 1 two-bedroom flat, it adds much-needed high-quality housing to the town centre. This supports local residents, young professionals, and families while promoting town centre living, which is vital for sustainable urban growth. The additional residents will contribute to the vibrancy of Ramsgate, boosting local businesses and encourage foot traffic in the area. This application is more than a construction project. It is a commitment to community and its future. The office's recommendation reflects the careful consideration and balance that this proposal represents, and it is hoped that the committee will recognise the opportunity it offers to enhance Ramsgate in a way that respects its past while planning for its future. Thank you for your time and for considering this application.
Thank you. And next, speaking against the application, Ms Birch, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm the owner of 6 Abbots Hill, which is right in the middle of the proposed development. It's a separate leasehold flat within the same building and freehold and will be surrounded on 3 sides by these plans. 6 Abbots Hill is a Victorian terrace. My flat is the 1st to 3rd floors, and this development will annex the ground floor and rear courtyard onto the 20th century King Street building. My flat, number 6, isn't mentioned really in the plans or anywhere in the planning officer's report, which does, however, detail impacts on other properties further up the road. It's therefore not possible from these documents to fully appreciate the devastating impact this will have on us. I would welcome a restoration and development of the Rooks building that is sympathetic to the local area and residents. Living in a partially occupied, deteriorating freehold is not ideal. The developer is our freeholder, and we seek a constructive ongoing relationship with them, as we have maintained with previous freeholders for the past 13 years. The development will surround my flat, underneath, beside and behind. My front door will be sandwiched between the entrance to the new flats and the office doors, adding a modern steel gate beneath our carefully preserved heritage windows, completely out of style and proportion within the facade of this row of Victorian terraces in a conservation area. My flat's only access is via a narrow wooden staircase between the proposed bin store and new flats. The fire risks are obvious. This leads to my living room and kitchen, which will be directly above the new entrance lobby, bin store and cycle store. There will be noise from the steel gate and foot traffic through the lobby at all times of day and night, smells from the rubbish and vibrations through my original wooden floors. There are no provisions in the plans for soundproofing or fireproofing my property. There's also the risk of vermin from storing rubbish inside a 150-year-old structure. The proposed communal courtyard at the rear will be directly beneath my 1st floor kitchen and toilet windows, which aren't drawn on the plans. Accessible through the entrance lobby, potentially anyone could gain access to this secluded space, compromising our security. The noise and loss of privacy will make me feel like I no longer have a sanctuary in my own home. Then there's the new balcony. I'll be able to reach out my landing window and touch it 63 centimetres, my arm's length away. Running out along our ridgepole, this gives easy access to our toilet roof and from there direct access into our windows. As a woman, this makes me feel vulnerable and unsafe. There are concerns about the flats being used for short-term rentals, as suggested in earlier plans. This could lead to increased noise and antisocial behaviour. Adding 3 new households carrying waste to the top of the steps on collection days may lead to rubbish overspilling and blocking access to this key route into the town centre. We have many concerns about these plans, from access and rubbish collection via the steps, to bin stores in internal rooms, to granting wider access to currently private spaces and creating new areas that give easy access to our windows. We're really distressed about the noise, safety and health risks and loss of privacy which we'll experience 24/7 given these are residential properties. I urge you to please consider the severe impact on 6 Abbots Hill and to reject this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Speaking under Council Procedure Rule 20.1, Councillor Huxley, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. I'm a councillor in Eastcliff Ward, Ramsgate, where this application is located. I've called the application into the Planning Committee following concerns I received from the previous speaker, who lives at 6 Abbots Hill, which is next door to the proposed development. There have been objections received from 9 local residents, Ramsgate Town Council's Planning Committee and the Ramsgate Heritage Design Forum. I therefore urge the committee to reject this application because of the following, and including the following points I want to make to you. In Thanet's local plan policy QD03, it states that the maximum legal distance between a property and the vehicle collection site for waste and recycling is 15 metres. The distance from the entrance of the proposed flats to the collection site at the top of the steps at Abbots Hill is just over 15 metres, but this means having to go up and down the steps, which could be hazardous, particularly in bad weather. The original application stated that the flats are going to be rented out as holiday lets. In the revised application, the only mention is flats quotes for sale and rental. We have too many Airbnbs and holiday lets in Ramsgate already. There is a risk that these flats won't cater for local families or people, so I would like to ask if that could be the subject of a condition. The proposed building materials to be used, the black metal entrance gate, black weatherboarding, black painted critter windows and white wall render, are not in keeping with the surrounding buildings within the conservation area, as specified in Local Plan Policy QD03. There is no mention by the applicant in their design statement of the building being in a conservation, its impact on neighbours, or any attempt to produce a design which is sympathetic to and in keeping with the surrounding listed buildings. In particular, the proposed glass balcony will overlook the kitchen WC on the first floor at number 6 Abbots Hill. Anyone over 1.8 metres in height could still look directly into these rooms, or stand on a chair and look over. This means a loss of privacy, increase in noise and sense of enclosure. The proposed waste collection scheme isn't fit for purpose, as referenced by the TDC Waste Compliance Manager's comments, and in all likelihood would result in the residents in the flats leaving the seagull-proof bags at the collection point at the top of the steps and not being bothered to bring them back into the communal entrance of the property, so this will cause a mess. The proposed metal-gated entrance to the new flats is out of keeping with the rest of Abbots Hill and is located to the left of the entrance to number 6. The proposed communal rubbish bin and bike store within the entrance to the new flats is therefore directly underneath the living room kitchen of the house, and number 6 will suffer from noise and rubbish smells, particularly in warm weather. There are no fire escapes specified on the plans and no disabled access, which is contrary to Local Plan Policy QD05. If the committee is minded to support the officer recommendation, then I request that kindly that the committee undertakes the site visit to 6 Abbots Hill. Thank you.
Thank you. The Planning Applications Manager will now outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. So the application is for the erection of a second floor extension with roof accommodation as well, with alterations to fenestration, internal layout, as well as the balcony that's been mentioned. So the proposal is creating 3 flats. It's 1 2-bed and 2 1-bed flats on the upper floors. So the site in question, ignore that red dot there, it's the other side. So that is the site outlined in red. So you can see the stairs that have already been mentioned that go sort of up to Abbots Hill. So you've got the property itself. You've got the neighbouring property on King Street, so that's 3 to 5 King Street. And then you've got on the other side of Abbots Hill, so you can see there's variation in the size of buildings in and around there, but I'm sure members will be quite familiar with this bit of Ramsgate and King Street in terms of the variation of up to 3 and in part 4-storey buildings as part of the conservation area. This is a wider view showing, the building at the moment. And then this is a view, obviously, looking up Abbots Hill. So you can start to see one of the entrances, which we'll look at on the elevations. You can see the windows, excuse me, at the moment. You can see, obviously, they're set within a reveal, but obviously the windows are sort of not necessarily reflective of other windows in the conservation area at the moment. You've also got sort of vents on the side of the windows as well, which relay back to its previous usage. And there's a bit more of a detailed view of what the side elevation looks like. So this is a view, excuse me, looking down. So mention's been made about the blue door, which goes to, in terms of number 6. You've got a door on one side. There's also going to be a door on the other side, which we'll look at. You've then got the building in question. So the yellow stock brick that you can see here. So this is part of the structure that's being altered, and you'll see it on the elevations, and the extension will extend over the white painted brickwork to the right hand side. This is a view back to number 6 Abbots Hill. Now this is the proposal that was previously submitted. So we had an application that came in which looked to create 6 flats in total, which was refused for 5 reasons. It was refused on its design in terms of the scale, the bulk, and the prominent location. It was refused because of the living conditions which were created for one of the flats. In particular, it was referred to as Flat A. Concerns that there wasn't any space provided for waste storage, also no cycle storage, as well as not securing the contribution towards the SPA, the SAMS contribution. So in terms of moving on to the proposal that's been made, so this is the existing front elevation. So you can see this upper part here, which was the yellow stock brick element. You can see there's a door access at the moment. So what is proposed is to put a additional floor on the top at this point. So that the accommodation is actually set within the roof. So this is a false pitch. It goes to then a flat roof. You've got one front dormer window. It is proposed to render the property and then replace the windows. So you'll see that the actual appearance of the windows and the opening of the windows is the same, but it's actually proposed to replace them with aluminium windows. Then this is the side elevation, so you can see the bit in question I mentioned. So this is being altered. You've got the side elevation at the moment. You can see the vents that we looked at. The blue door is the annotated door there, and then you have a new door being created on the ground floor of, effectively the ground floor of number 6. You have the extension and change at this area here, and then again the change in the windows that's being shown. So you can see that the windows actually match the floor heights, and you can see that this part of the building has different floor levels to this part of the building because of obviously the fact that it's on a slope. So in terms of the existing floor plans, now what's not shown here is you've got an annotation here which says entry to the flats above, so that's actually in this location here, and you've got a cold store at the moment. So as mentioned, you've got development either side of that access into the flat that the resident's been speaking about, and what's being proposed is to create a new door on one side of this. So on the Abbots Hill side, so you've got the door in the middle, not shown on the plans, but it is here. You saw it on the photo. You've then got a door into an office space that's being created, so linked to as a commercial space. Then you've got a lobby where you've got a bin storage location and cycle rack location. Mention's been made about bin storage. You'll see from the comments in the report from the waste and recycling team that there's no intention of them to collect from the premises, because they don't collect from premises all the way down Abbots Hill. They require the bags to be tied at the top of the hill, and that's where they'll actually be collected. So in terms of the 15 metres distance, that's normally it's 15 metres for waste operatives can travel to collect, but it's the other way around here. This is for residents who will have to take their bins and put them here on collection day and then return them afterwards. So what you've then got, if you're going in the level on Abbots Hill where you sort of enter the flats, you've got mentioned some private storage, you've then got the staircase, and then mention's been made of the outdoor space that's sort of outside of the immediate site, but is actually sort of underneath certain other building elements of what's proposed. So then what you've got on the first floor, second floor, and then roof plan. So if you take the image on the left, we're looking at the floor plan here. So you can see at the moment the stairs go up to the upper floors. Previously it was used in connection with the commercial unit. What that's then been changed into is you have 2 flats on the first floor. So you have this is the centre where the mouse pointer is. This is where the sort of staircase and lobby is for those flats. You've got flat A, which meets the minimum standards with 2 primary windows looking out of Abbots Hill. You've then got the flat which has the windows along both the side and the front, which is the larger flat but still a single bed unit. And then moving on to the middle image, you're then looking at effectively the new accommodation. Obviously there is at the front here where you've got bedroom 2, there is the existing building that actually goes up to that level, but what's then proposed is obviously the accommodation within the new roof slope. This is above the standards for a new flat in terms of size. It's not quite to the extent that's shown there because obviously because of where the roof is actually pitching down, obviously the head height is minimised around the edges. Mention's been made of this balcony, which we'll look at in a bit more detail when we're looking at the rear elevations of the building, but it's worth noting, if you look here, and we will look at this in a bit more detail, the window in question, which has been mentioned in the neighbouring property at number 6, there is also a window which we'll look at from images here as well on the back of the rear of the property on King Street. So this balcony is serving flat C. Now, you'll note in the report that there is commentary about this balcony because we don't consider balconies to be doorstep play space. So this is a sort of long-standing view that we've taken as officers. But obviously the attempt has been made here to provide some private amenity space because it's a 2-bed unit, and we are normally requiring 2-bed units to provide private amenity space. So, just to look at the roof plan, I appreciate it's a bit of a blurry image because it's been taken from Google, but obviously just to give you the explanation of this, because the rear is more difficult to see from ground level because of the built-up development around King's Place, etc. But there are some images that have been taken from various windows as well. But you can see this is the existing roof plan, so you can see that's the 2-storey element on the left-hand side there, which you can sort of see in an isometric fashion here. So you can see that this is the King Street property, which has a window here, and turning it around. So this is the King Street property, which the rear elevation has a window in this location here. And then I believe this image will show then this is that 2-storey element here, and then you can see the windows in question for the neighbouring property. One window that's here, which is the one that's next to where that balcony area is. And this is effectively looking from that window, giving a view of the rear of the King Street property. So this window here is a window that actually is a staircase window for the King Street property. And that's particularly relevant because the proposed extension that will occur in this area here will extend past that window and also be higher than that eaves height there as well. So we'll look at a section to show you that. But this is the area, sorry, losing my voice. This is the area in question when it comes to the balcony. So, so we're looking at the same view. So back to this view, you can see that here's the cat slide roof. Here's the cat slide roof here. So then you can see that the balcony is higher than the eaves height as we were here. So it's in this area here. With opaque glass screen to the side. It's proposed that the glazing has been is put in. There is a condition which would require it to be 1.8 metres to the finished floor level. Obviously, as members will be familiar with, the aim of these sorts of screenings is always to try and avoid overlooking, but obviously that has to be considered against impact on sense of enclosure, for example, as well. So there is a balance when it comes to that. In terms of then looking towards the rear of number 6 and looking again at that 2-storey element here, and again thinking of where we were looking at that photo. So what's proposed is the back end of the roof extension is predominantly, the bulk of it is in this area here. So as I mentioned, it will protrude past this sort of area, this triangle protrudes past that window, but as that window in King Street is not a habitable room space, it's not considered to cause harm to the property on King Street. In terms of the relationship with the property on Abbots Hill, specifically obviously the aim has been to avoid overlooking. Members obviously can consider the point about noise and disturbance that's been mentioned. Obviously this is a single unit, it's a 2-bed unit, and obviously the level of activity that would be created from a 2-bedroom unit does need to be taken into account when thinking about whether or not it would inherently lead to noise and disturbance, given that it is clearly in close proximity with that property. We are obviously in a town centre location though, but obviously the actual physical structure of the actual building itself is set away from that window, so we don't consider the actual physical alterations to cause harm to the living conditions. And so yeah, just to confirm then, going back to the floor plan, you've got the window in question there, you've then got the obscure glaze screening around the edge, and then you've got the balcony itself here. So in terms of to summarise some of the other conditions that are proposed on the application. So there is a proposal to require a construction environmental management plan. We're in the town centre. We need to obviously ensure that we're managing deliveries and that side of things to try and minimise as much disturbance as possible. There are conditions related to cycle storage and refuse storage. Obviously, the location in terms of internally is an internal location. The storage itself, has obviously been put forward with the aim for it to be that residents would move the bin storage and take it elsewhere. In terms of concerns about fire safety there are matters that obviously would be looked at by building control in terms of when actually any structural flats like this are created. Fundamentally, fire safety is a building control matter. This is not a planning matter for this application. It would not be something that we would consider. It comes through the building regs process. In terms of the impact on the conservation area, it isn't considered that the building itself offers particular merit in the conservation area. The improvements that are being made obviously would tidy up the side elevation. I appreciate the comments that have been made in terms of the fact that windows are going in that are aluminium. They're not timber. However, given the mismatch of windows that you've got there at the moment, we do consider that to have aluminium windows set within the reveals, which is one of the sort of key elements that actually does merit in the facade design and the articulation you get from the existing building, coupled with the fact that obviously the changes that have been made to the proposal to remove the bulk at the roof level with slates to be, I believe it's to be provided. Let me just get my conditions up. Samples of the slate to be provided. We do consider that it is acceptable in terms of its impact on the conservation area in terms of visual appearance. Because the application is creating residential units, there is a requirement to enter into a unilateral undertaking. We have received a draft unilateral undertaking. I think it's actually a signed unilateral undertaking, but we haven't yet verified that is that will definitely secure the contribution. So the recommendation is to defer for approval to officers subject to safeguarding conditions and the receipt of an acceptable signed legal agreement securing the contribution to the SAMs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I move that the officer's recommendation is adopted. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rizeki. First indicator to speak was Councillor Alban, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have some concerns about this. I have concerns about the waste storage, the waste collection. It's certainly a problem for our waste team, and I don't think that that's satisfactory. I think it would really nice to get this building sorted and developed, but I don't think this development is the right development. I am extremely concerned about the neighbour at number 6 Abbots Hill, and I think we need to pay extreme attention to that, because this is really going to affect how they live, and the impact on them, I think, is too extreme. However, I would go along with with Councillor Huxley's request for a site visit. I would personally like to go and have a look from 6 Abbots Hill of what the impact of what is proposed would actually have. So for me to make a balanced judgment on that, I do believe that I need to go and see it. And if this falls, then I would propose a site visit. Thank you.
Councillor Everett.
Yeah, I think despite Mr Livingston's best efforts, I mean, if there was ever an application, a residential application of this kind which would benefit from a site visit, this must be it, because it's impossible to understand the relationship with 6 Abbots Hill from the report and from the pictures. I think we need to actually see it. I have concerns about the relationship with number 6. I'm also a bit puzzled by Mr Livingston's explanation of the balcony, because he said on the one hand we don't normally take it into account as outdoor space, but on the other hand they've provided it and we would normally expect it for a 2-bedroom flat. So is it valid as outdoor space, or is it potentially a reason for refusal? I'm not quite sure what Mr Livingston's advising us.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to clarify. So the officers commented about the fact that in regards to compliance with, is it GIO 5? Was it GIO 4? The 4. Sorry, I'm still thinking SR5 from the 2006 local plan. The doorstep play space has different considerations when you're in a town centre, in reality, because ultimately you're working in a situation where you are landlocked and there isn't always the opportunity when you're dealing with larger units on upper floors to provide access for outdoor space. It's not usually possible to do so. That's why we do get balconies provided in this sort of location. However, as I mentioned, we haven't considered them to be compliant with the particular points that we put about outdoor space within the policy. I suppose in terms of the advice they've provided it, it's not necessarily, I would suggest, a requirement for them to provide it, and I think that there would be sufficient justification in my mind to suggest that actually a proposal which just had a 2-bed flat in a town centre, because it's in a town centre, wouldn't fall down on the policy that it hasn't provided doorstep play space, because no development will happen in town centres. It's a different consideration from when we're looking at a normal residential property. That being said, it has been proposed, and therefore, as I've been mentioning, considering it on its own merits, the question is then whether or not, obviously, the fact that there is obscure glazing, does that deal with the overlooking? Does that cause a sense of enclosure? And ultimately, is there a concern with regards to that balcony being present in terms of the impact on the neighbouring property in terms of living conditions?
Thank you. I have 5 speakers lined up. Councillor Garner first.
Thank you. Yeah, I echo Councillor Alban and Councillor Everett's concerns about the impact on number 6. They seem to be very enclosed by this development, and I would certainly have concerns if I lived there. I guess looking at this, as this has been refused previously, and we've very helpfully in the report been given the grounds for the refusal, to my mind, for this to be approved, those grounds of refusal have to be satisfied. And I don't believe the first one is. The first one is quite clear, that this sits within a Ramsgate conservation area, and it's a duty to pay special attention to the desirability of preserving and enhancing the special character and appearance. And I can't see how any changes that would be made to the previous application have satisfied us, officers and us, that is no longer a concern. I think cycle storage was mentioned, I believe, but I didn't get a clear understanding of where the cycle storage is now, and how it isn't causing even more conflict for the resident of number 6. And I also echo what Councillor Alban says about the waste and recycling issues that are bound to happen, especially as, and I don't believe this is a planning consideration, but especially as the likelihood is that these are going to be rental properties, and if not short-term rental properties, then that just adds to the issues that are going to have with how these things are dealt with. I mean, if a site visit is called for, then I would echo that.
Thanks. I'll just come back on just a couple of points just to clarify. So in terms of the previous proposal, and actually, hang on, sorry, don't look directly at the screen for a second. So You won't be able to see this in a lot of detail because I didn't necessarily think I'd need to discuss it in detail, but this is the floor plan of the refused application. And I think it's relevant. Obviously, that was for 6 flats, and there was no area for waste and recycling or cycle storage as far as I'm aware. What was obviously proposed is that actually the main entrance on Abbots Hill effectively goes into, there we go, effectively the new door that's being created goes into an area where you've got cycle storage on one side and you've got effectively the bags, or the area for the bags on the left-hand side. I mean, in terms of the conservation area impact, you'll see, obviously, this is the proposal. So what you're doing is, on the front elevation from King Street, you've got effectively the alteration is the facade in terms of the materials, but then you've got a roof extension, and then on the side you have got an increase similarly. The previous proposal, what that proposed actually was a full height extension at this level. So whilst that may look like roof tiles, that is a sheer face at that point. So in terms of the bulk at that level, it was significantly increased above both what's proposed now and obviously what the building is at the moment. And you can see obviously that there are much larger areas of void in terms of the solid to void ratio which you get with regards to windows and wall on the side elevation. So we do think that the proposal has achieved a better design, and we do think that deals with the conservation area point. Now, in terms of concerns about waste and collection, we obviously talked about this quite a bit when it comes to town centres and the issues that present in town centres, and there is an operational issue with regards to waste and recycling and the service, but then there's the reality of having residential properties above shops and flats and how that can operate. Ultimately, in terms of what planning can do, is we can ensure that there is a location for storage on a permanent basis that avoids bins permanently being stored in front of properties or where there would be effectively an impact on the visual amenity of the area. Now, in terms of the other concerns about where that is in the building, the relationship with the neighbouring property, obviously that's a separate matter to do with living conditions. But in terms of the actual harm created from the waste provision that they've made, there isn't any planning harm because it's contained inside. In terms of, the waste recycling team are aware of it, they know what they're going to have to do, and obviously they've commented on it, they made it very clear they're not going to come and collect it. People are going to have to put it up the top of the stairs. So yeah, I don't think there was anything else that came up on that. Thank you.
Councillor Uzeki.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to echo what my other council colleagues have said. I think we should have a site visit, have a look, see the effect on the other property next to it before we make a decision on this. Thank you.
Councillor Wing.
I think we should have a site visit, so I think I'm either Magic 6 now. It's a really difficult, it's a really strange, it's quite a beautiful location as well, although it's blighted by rubbish and litter. I think the developer's got to be congratulated for keeping the shop front as it is, but I think the developer's missed an opportunity to actually do something with the other 2 floors, because they've always looked like they're just stuck on there and they don't relate to the building below. So I think a lot more could be done to try and do something to make that whole front facade more balanced and in keeping with the conservation zone. I live in a small house between two. In fact, I'm surrounded by most buildings. Every building around me is higher than me, apart from the little cottage. But I chose to live there. I really feel for the person at 6A, and I think the impact on that neighbour and other neighbours is too much. And I think we do need a site visit, because I can't really understand how the side of that building and how this building will impact on that resident. So we definitely need to go and have a look, because it's a very tight and a very strange location. Also on the side up the stairs, I know as you walk up those stairs, there's so many stairs and then there's a flat bit, there's so many stairs and then there's a flat bit. The whole side of it is destroyed by the additional additional doors. So if we could see the side, so we end up with we end up with these additional doors. I don't know how they relate to the passage of the stairs going up, whether it's one of the flat bits, they hit one of the flat bits, or whether there's got to be some additional measures because the door opens on partway on a series of stairs, which is another reason for the site visit is really important. The iron gate is obviously totally out of character with anything up there. I can't remember an iron gate. My Eastcliff colleagues, there isn't an iron gate going up there. They're all. It's very much a very sort of unique set of stairways going up there. They're front doors. They're shop fronts. They're not iron gates. So it's not in keeping with the whole essence of that passage. But we need a site visit.
I think we've just got the picture up. We can just see that it does appear that the new door is opening onto a flat bit. Right, next speaker is Councillor Matterface. Oh.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted, in connection with the balcony, GI04 was quoted, but looking at what's listed here, GI04 is a miniature green space and equipped play areas. I don't really understand how that relates to a balcony. I mean, should it have been a different number?
I believe it's, again, I'm doing this blind, but I believe it's right at the end of that actual policy. It's also mentioning QDO3, which is the living conditions policy. But it's, sorry, Emma's just... Yeah, if you got the actual... Yeah, so the wording of that policy is new family dwellings will be expected to incorporate garden space in order to provide safe doorstep play space, play area for young children. The policy is very lengthy. It's got a few different elements to it. But yes, the title doesn't reflect the complexity of the policy.
Councillor Kay-Bright.
Thank you. I think I'm broadly aligned with everyone, particularly with Councillor Wing. I'd honestly, the application that's in front of us, including the balcony, I honestly can't really see how a site visit would make me feel comfortable with approving this. So where I'm coming from is I genuinely can't imagine how we can make this a tolerable level of impact on the neighbour at Abbots Hill. So I'm afraid I can't actually support the motion.
Okay, just for the maths of this, there's 14 of us tonight, so the magic number is 7. But you were close. Sometimes it's been 6. I have Councillor Bayford. I do have a comment I want to make, but Councillor Bayford first.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I'm not available on the 12th of December, but sorry, the 6th of December, sorry, or the 12th for that matter. But I do feel that this is an application that does warrant a site visit. I think it's very important to feel how it is to be enclosed and to see the effect of it. So I would very much appreciate hearing from members who are able to attend, and I feel there should be a site visit. Thank you.
Hang on a minute. I do have a question, and I would have been the magic 7. I want to go back to the bin store picture on the diagram, please. And I am absolutely amazed that my colleagues, Councillor Wing and Garner, have not raised this. My experience of bin stores is that usually they vary from fairly distasteful to utterly vile when they are communal bin stores. If I was to live in one of those 3 flats, I would be hanky over nose, run, because that is through the bin store. And on that grounds alone, I would be refusing. And that's my personal opinion as a member of the committee. The fact that I'm chair, that's irrelevant. But that's my view. But if people want a site visit, I will be more than happy to go ahead and still be number 7 on the site visit.
So in terms of we've talked about this a few times. We've obviously hit a sort of a number of half of the members want a site visit, which indicates that the motion would fall. What would be required in this instance would be that the chair would propose to withdraw the motion, and then the person that seconded, which I believe was Councillor Rozecki, would have to agree to withdraw that motion with a new motion being put forward for a site visit. I think before that happens, because that's what's going to happen, I think what I do want to put in members' minds is that the proposal in terms of the principle of putting flats above the shop is acceptable in policy terms. Therefore, members should be mindful of what they could change to this scheme and what the issues are that they have with it when viewing it on site, to think about whether or not there are things that they could defer to officers for amendments, etc., that would deal with the concerns they've got, especially due to the impact on the neighbouring property, which is something. So I just wanted to just raise that point particularly.
Okay, in that case, I withdraw the motion. Councillor Rozecki, would you please second?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Would you like to put the motion, Councillor Alban, for a site visit?
I propose a site visit, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Wing. Thank you. And those in favour of a site visit, please indicate. And were there any refusals? And any abstentions? Thank you, that's carried. So the site visit is for the 6th of December at 9:30, and we will tell you where to meet. Right, so at this point, we move to the conclusion of public speaking, and I have to ask the 4 councillors who have declared an interest in the remaining item if you will now leave. There is only one item on the reserve list, so there is no need for you to come back because there's nothing else after it. All right, so thank you. I'm now going to call upon the clerk to read out the remaining planning applications. If any member wishes to reserve the application, will you please call out as the clerk reads? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It looks like there's just one application, which is A03 Glendon Vaughan Guest House, 8 Truro Road in Ramsgate.
Thank you. So that's now called. So did you call it to debate? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So the principal planning officer.
Oh, no, it's
not. It's the planning applications manager. Will outline the report.
So we hadn't updated the script. Apologies that it would be me. So let me just find the. There we go. So this is an application by Thanet District Council.
Hang on a minute, because Council was...
Oh, sorry, I thought you... No. Oh, beg your pardon.
Okay, he's left the chamber. So, oh.
All right. Oh.
Well, we can put it to the vote. It's entirely up to you, Chair, whether or not everyone wants to hear about it.
Well, if she's withdrawing,
it's already
called off the reserve.
Shall I very, very quickly just tell everyone what it's about, so that everyone knows? For it very briefly, I appreciate what I was saying. Thank you. So this is an application by TDC. It's for temporary accommodation within the former guest house at 8 Truro Road. The site is in a residential area, but obviously it has been used as a guest house in the past. It's obviously got lots of extensions and lots of bedrooms because of that. In terms of the actual proposal, it includes, it's the provision effectively of 7 units. Now, the important point and the relevant condition that members should be aware of is condition 4, because as individual units, these are smaller than the nationally described space standards. So we wouldn't want them under the planning remit to be permanent accommodation because they're too small. However, obviously in this instance, they're used for temporary accommodation. Therefore, there is a condition which requires that people can only stay in them for up to 6 months. That is obviously well in excess of the target that the temporary accommodation would be used for. But ultimately, there is a huge benefit, obviously, dealing with the shortfall in temporary accommodation by bringing it back into the district, and the recommendations for approval.
Thank you. I move the officer's recommendation is adopted. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Uzeki. Does anyone have any questions or comments? In that case, can we vote for the recommendation for approval? All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. That concludes the business for the meeting. Thank you for your attendance and good night.